Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weekend Grill. Thank you for joining me. There were 8 teams that started off the journey in September. There's now 6. And here to talk it all over with me is Paul. But Paul Italiano, unfortunately, has lost his voice. I've got half a voice, so we've had to bring in old mate Paul Sebastiani. Welcome.
Still an Italiano, though. Still a big Italian. Good to be back in the hot seat, AD. It's good to be back with the Weekend Grillers, with the Roasters. What a week 1 of finals,
mate! It's great to have you. September's navy blue. I thought I was going to have a black and white person over here, Collingwood fan.
No.
But
brought in the big guns, mate.
Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Pleasure,
mate. You don't have to bear with me because obviously you can hear my voice. It's not that good.
It's a bit,
so I apologise.
It's a bit hoarse.
Yeah,
HOARSE.
Yeah, that's right. It is. It is on 1%, but look, mate, we're going to go through the week 1 finals and do a slight review of all 4 games that were.
Yes.
Standing up big in September or standing tall in September, there's a few players, obviously, that made a name for themselves in September. And obviously, a lot of players that are remembered usually do have big games in September. We'll go through a couple of those games. We'll discuss the players that you and I both think had a big impact in those games. Yep. And, of course, we'll have a week 2 finals preview, which starts on Friday night with Carlton and Melbourne and Carlton, at the MCG, and then Saturday with Port Adelaide and GWS. But let's cast our minds back now to last Thursday, which it feels like a while ago.
Press rewind.
And it was Collingwood versus Melbourne. Collingwood won that game by 7 points, 60-53.
Yep.
Some inaccurate kick in there from Melbourne, 9-6-60. Collingwood 7-11, 53 to Melbourne.
Yep.
How did you see it, Paul?
That's a good question. Everyone knows what the talking point out of the game is.
Absolutely.
It's the big incident. But I think just from a general play perspective, I thought they were good in between the arcs, but ultimately, if you don't have a forward line that can score goals, what's the point of going out there? And I understand that. I do think it's a bit of a... People were shocked by the inside 50 discrepancy and how Melbourne weren't able to put on the scoreboard, but Melbourne have been doing that for a lot of the year. The inside 50 count might not have been as lopsided in previous games for the Demons, but...
Do you think that's what Max Gawn was talking about when he said this is a very Melbourne-type loss?
Yes, absolutely.
Some pretty strong words which have had some...
they needed it.
Had some people's ears perked up.
Yeah, mate, I reckon they need a good kick up the backside as well, just with regards to their ball movement going forward too. And it's not... A lot of their entries were not... The entries coming in didn't do their forwards any favour. It did do their forwards any favours, but the forwards also didn't do their ball carriers any favours as well, and some of the missed shots, my goodness me. It's not just the behinds as well.
Some
they
of
had
them you
6
actually
or
can't
7 or 8 out on the full as well. Bailey Fritsch missing a shot that nearly ended up, at Marvel Stadium, a come off his shin, come off his wrist, actually.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was texting our good friend Paul Italiano and trying to explain to him just to put things into context. So just on that kick, that Bailey Fritsch set goal towards a punt road end where, Bailey Fritsch has had a footy in his hand since he was probably 7 or 8.
Correct.
And in the last 3 or 4 years, or however long he's been in the system, longer, it'd be closer to 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah.
He has 300 shots on goal a week, and he gets to that game at that particular moment, and it basically misses the boot and kicks it towards the bench.
I can tell you.
You can't make it up.
I reckon in training that week, he would not have kicked a ball like that at all.
He could try that 100 times, and it wouldn't have happened. But look, I thought Collingwood played very, very well. I understand Melbourne's sort of statistically lopsided after quarter time, and it's fair to say that they had the game on their terms. I thought the way that Collingwood was able to withstand all that pressure in their defence.
Yes.
Was very good. And I do agree with you in terms of, the forwards from Melbourne didn't do their ball carrier any justice. And look, I suppose the argument now is going to be, had Melbourne's forward line been a bit more efficient and had Collingwood's defence come up slightly more potent forward line, would they have won that game?
You can make the argument for yes, clearly. I think that's pretty obvious. But for me, I think looking back at this game as well is people have said, Collingwood's defence is back. Defence wins your premierships. But ultimately they've defended against the forward line that is just
dysfunctional.
It's feeble, really. It's absolutely feeble at the moment. And I know we've seen this a million times. A forward line gets slated, and then the week after they come out and score 100 points. And
so is that why you're going to be quiet about talking about Melbourne?
No,
because they're versing in the bag is this
No,
week,
not at
mate?
all. Not at all. Not at all. Because I think we know how good Carlton's backline is, clearly. But again, I just think both teams have got holes in them. Collingwood and Melbourne, clearly. Melbourne have got a lot more holes in them at the moment. But was I convinced by the Pies?
You can be honest here.
Was I convinced by the Pies?
This is a safe place for you here, Paul. This is a safe place.
I wasn't convinced by the Pies, but the run that they're going to get into the grand final just sets them up perfectly because they're going to play one at Port GWS and they're going to beat Port GWS at the MCG. As simple as that. I would be absolutely shocked if they lost to one of those two teams at the G. Shocked.
So the face you're going to make when they do lose, and that's going to be shocking, isn't it?
It'll be with a massive smile on my face.
There he is. There's the navy blue coming out of him.
No, I can't help it. I can't help it.
Let's talk about some of the incidents that happened in the game. All right. First and foremost, Jacob Van Rooyen's hit on Daniel McStay has warranted him a one-match suspension from the tribunal, which Melbourne have come out and said they are not challenging. They're accepting it, which means he's ineligible to play.
Correct.
This week. The Maynard and Brayshaw incident, it needs to be discussed. And we tweeted on Thursday night that this was going to be all theatre. And to be honest with you, Paul, that's how it's playing out. So the MRO, Michael Christian, and with the assistance of newly appointed Laura Kane, has directed Brayden Maynard straight to the tribunal, which will be tonight. Which in theory means that he's looking at a minimum of 3 weeks.
3 weeks as soon as it's sent. Yep.
Can we, let's sort of backtrack towards the whole incident itself.
Right. Yep.
Can I get your thoughts on, obviously, whatever's run, like, how do you think it's going to run?
So I don't, personally, I don't think that act should be suspended.
Right.
I don't think he should be suspended, but I think he will be suspended because of what's occurred as precedent in the past.
So do you think we're punishing the act or the outcome?
Outcome. Clear, okay. But that's clear. There's no, they're punishing the outcome. There's no two ways about it.
Do you believe that's wrong? Because I know I do.
Is it wrong?
For a process-driven system.
That's a very good question. Is it wrong? Okay, so the AFL has to be seen to be doing something in these situations because of the
class action
that has come forward and all these past players that have come forward saying, suffering from CTE or I'm suffering from post-concussion ordeals physically and mentally and all that kind of stuff. So the AFL will get to a point where it's funny, as soon as it comes down to the point where it's going to cost them financially, all of a sudden, everything shifts.
That's a big call.
Now concussion is the most important thing in the game. Now we have a duty of care to our players, as employers, as custodians of the game, right? Now everything is about we've got to physically protect the players. Whereas before it was like you go out onto the field, as soon as you're not an AFL player, we don't care about you because they knew that they couldn't be done financially. Now that they know that they can be done financially, the narrative changes. So it's all about, as Shane McMahon's theme song said in the WWE, here comes the money, money, mate. Everyone can say, no, they really care about the players. And I'm sure there are people at AFL House that genuinely have compassion and care for players. But there are people that are wired that way in society.
I guarantee you the whole AFL does, but when it affects their pocket.
Ultimately, it's bottom line. It's a bottom line industry. And that's what's going to come to the fore, isn't it?
Paul, this is...
it's true, but it's true.
This is why...
But it's true.
This is why you're a highly sought-after pundit of the game, because that was very well said.
No one discusses this because it's a whole, you've got to care about the players. I understand that.
It's a secret.
I completely understand that. But it's ironic that as soon as a financial implication on the AFL is going to bear fruit, the narrative just changes.
So you speak of the narrative, and you know how big I am on how these sort of things work, and we have our beliefs.
Yes.
How do you see this playing out? Because I'm looking at this right now, and
the Maynard incident specifically.
Yeah,
okay,
this
right.
is just a distraction. This is just
Yeah. Of course. So will he get suspended? I think he will because the AFL's intervened because of the tribunal, and then Collingwood are going to appeal
Paul,
it.
if he's going to the tribunal, he's not going there for him to get off.
Exactly
so
right.
The facts of the matter are he's going to get suspended.
Yep. And then Collingwood will appeal it. It'll drag on for another 2 or 3 days, and then there'll be more media hype around it. More newspapers will sell. More articles will get clicked. More money for the AFL. Everyone's happy. Yada, yada, yada. Brayden Maynard or Melbourne are going to be the ones that aren't happy out of all of it, and the teams that Collingwood plays. There's just that's going to be the ramification of it. And look who's waiting in the wings to replace him. And Dacos. They got a pretty ample replacement. I know they don't play same role, but, from an influence point of view.
It's just a massive distraction for both parties here. And obviously we both are aware of any publicity is good publicity for the AFL.
Is it ever?
Which you just sort of touched on.
Yeah.
So your belief is he will get suspended.
Yep.
Let's face the facts.
Yep.
You believe Collingwood, and most people believe Collingwood logically are going to appeal it.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay, so they're going to, let's hypothetically say, because look, we're filming this on a Tuesday morning. The
Yep.
tribunal's tonight.
Yep. We'll know the result by the time this is out.
By the time this is out, you'll be watching it. The result, what the match review office or the tribunal hands out will be known.
Yep.
Collingwood will appeal. Will try and reduce it to. This is the big one. Collingwood are rocking up there now. They know he's suspended. They know he's going to get 3 weeks. Yeah. Now, the question is whether, if they appeal, whether it's a 1 or a 2 week, because I can't see it being less than 1. If Collingwood fans genuinely believe that he's going to get off, they're a lot dumber than what I thought.
Yeah.
I reckon our very own Paul Italiano will tell you.
Can he attest to that?
If he took that cap off his eye, and he actually used both of his eyes, which he does, he's a very fair Paul Italiano.
Yes.
I think he'll tell you deep down that is a minimum of 1 week. There is no way he can get off. And we need to make one thing clear. The AFL last year were embarrassed, were made to look, they were humiliated by that Patrick Cripps incident.
Yeah.
It's my belief that they're going to use it to make an example out of Brayden Maynard. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree. I think.
Which is unfortunate for Brayden Maynard because there's a lot of talk that he's a dirty player. You and I both agree he's not a dirty player.
He's not a dirty player.
I think he plays the game hard and tough.
He's on edge.
He crosses the line and he plays for his teammates or anyone that's wearing black and white. But the facts of the matter are, Paul, it's my belief he's going to get a minimum of 1. And to be fair, I think it's looking closer to 2.
Yeah. As soon as it gets sent to the appeal, there could be a scenario where it does go from 3 to 0. It can happen.
Obviously, it can.
It can happen if Collingwood are good enough to make the argument that it shouldn't be a suspension. I don't know how. I don't know how they're going to do that.
I don't know how they're going to do. Sorry, I don't know how they're going to do that when he left the ground and
that's
then
the problem.
And change the way his movement of his body. As unfortunate as it is, and I know let's be honest, it is a football act.
Yeah.
But the reality is he's jumped up to perform a football act, and on his way down, he's braced for contact.
Yep.
And the moment you leave the ground, your duty
100%.
of care is
And again, see how the narrative has changed. Now everyone's talking about. Now everybody's talking about duty of care. There are two things
that
here.
But the fact
is true.
In actuality, it's relevant. It's the way it is.
There are two things that will come out of this, right? The AFL, so he's going to get suspended because, from what we've seen in precedent, a year's a long time from the Cripps Archie moment. I'm
a big believer that incident right
huge,
there, Paul. It embarrassed the AFL.
It did.
I don't think they liked it.
No,
they weren't happy
They
weren't happy with the Carlton lawyers getting it overturned.
At the end of it would have looked stupid on Brownlow night, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing too. So there's another one. So I think in this moment, we said earlier that it's outcome based. If it's outcome based, he's gone.
Yeah,
and the AFL needs to be seen. I'm not happy with that. I know, but the AFL needs to be seen to be doing something in this scenario, because if Gus Brayshaw comes back to the AFL in 4 or 5 years' time when his career is done and says, I'm suffering from this, and this because I played football under your organisation, your duty of care, you were negligent in looking after me, and the rules that you put in place.
We're going to have another legal matter.
We're going to have another legal matter.
Yeah.
And the AFL is, for lack of a better phrase, covering its tush.
Well, I agree with everything you said. And I think one thing we haven't mentioned and we should mention, which we all agree on, that we hope the welfare and safety of
Correct.
Angus Brayshaw is fine. Now,
Yes.
the talk that I'm hearing, some of it is being publicised, other parts of it isn't, is there is a strong possibility this could be career over.
Yeah,
I'm not joking. This is very similar to the Paddy McCartan from Sydney. Not similar in terms of the incident, but similar outcome in terms of Angus Brayshaw's career could be in jeopardy, and his health and safety is number one.
He's going to have to make a call, isn't he?
He will, and we all pray for him, and we all hope that it works out well for him, and whatever he chooses to do, whatever happens, hopefully it's in the best interest of his safety. But yeah, it's one of those situations that, as we've discussed, it's going to take up a lot of our time. It's going to take up a lot of the week. This is going to drag on for the whole week. It's going to
go for years.
And the reality is Collingwood don't play until next week.
Exactly.
So then when they appeal, is the tribunal going to go, oh, no one's available Thursday, Friday? Come back to us on Monday.
I know.
I mean, like, we've got a game to prepare for, guys.
And then it'll go down the path of, Gus Brayshaw. People who are concussed, they have to sign waivers to get back onto the field to ensure that the AFL is not liable.
We were candid about this early in the year. We discussed this in our first episode that we ever did. I believe it potentially has the potential to get to the stage where the AFL is going to put a contractual agreement where if you want to play AFL, unfortunately, you need to sign a waiver.
The AFL needs to ask the question of itself, how do we not become liable in this scenario?
Without looking like we're money-driven. Because
exactly.
No disrespect to the AFL, we both know that this is a business.
Of course it
is. And the AFL, as you mentioned earlier, the AFL...
Of course it is.
They're not... It's driven by money and financial outcome to a certain extent, but there are people there that care about the welfare.
No, there are.
No, there is.
Of course there are.
We're humans, we all have that.
Of course,
we all care about the welfare, but
yeah. Ultimately, that's what's, the bottom line is the bottom line.
It's the dollars.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the big question that the AFL will ask in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. How do we eradicate this organisation from being liable to concussion and the syndromes and the effects of it post-football?
Well, we need to face the reality and face facts that AFL, Australian rules football, the sport that we love, is a contact-based sport.
It's brutal.
This is going to happen. They can...
Yeah, it's brutal.
We have to be real. All these suspensions that have happened throughout the whole year and last year, towards the back end of last year.
Yep.
We've seen 24 rounds of AFL football. We've seen 1 week of finals. People are still getting suspended, mate.
Nature of the beast.
How can you take it out like,
Nature of the beast.
I believe it's going to come, something has to give, and it's going to get to a point, as I said, where the AFL's going to have to introduce, as harsh and as pessimistic as it may sound or seem, but it needs to be done, where the AFL will need to introduce something in the player contract or make an agreement. I don't know how they're going to do it with the Players Association.
Waiver or something.
The players have to sign a waiver.
It's going to be
you're welcome. Yeah, no, it's going to be a shit
lengthy
show.
Negotiations. Those are the two words that'll be used.
Good. But look, some injury news to come out of that game. I haven't heard anything about Collingwood's injury news, but news broke this morning, or rather on Sunday at Melbourne's training session, that Max Gawn and Clayton Oliver were both training separately or weren't training at all.
Yep.
Here we are Tuesday morning at 10 to 10 a.m., so 9:50 a.m., and it's been released that Max Gawn has a broken toe.
Yep.
What toe that is would be, I'm just going to assume it's the right toe, so it's probably his kicking foot. They're expecting him to play, but yeah, so that's a big watch on Clayton Oliver, and more importantly, Max Gawn, who is integral and who I thought was best on ground in that game. I was
going to say, if he had the broken toe during that game, it didn't affect him.
I
don't know, maybe it will this week, who knows?
But anyway, look, we'll move on from that game. Collingwood advanced to the preliminary final and Melbourne playing a semi-final this Friday against Carlton, who came up against Sydney Swans and triumphed by a goal, 11-8-74 to 9-14-68 Friday. 7:50 p.m. at the MCG in front of 92,000 people. Massive. Paul, we're both blue baggers.
Yes.
I'll leave it to you. I know you're the better analyst here, so tell me how the game was.
Just a game full of momentum flows, really. It was just, it ebbed and flowed, and Carlton put the foot down when it had to. I thought the second half was a little disappointing on. No, actually, no. I'll you know what? I'll refrain from using that. I don't think they were disappointing at all. I think they had to absorb.
They're on the ropes.
Yeah. There are moments where there are games in finals where you just have to hang on, just absorb, just get it. At the end of the day, margins mean stuff all.
That's what Craig McRae said on Friday.
Margins mean nothing. Yeah. Margins, they're not analysing percentage at this time of year.
Yeah,
it's all about the wins here, and that's what Carlton was able to do. Whether or not that gets them over the line against Melbourne, whether or not that performance was good enough to get them over the line against Melbourne, who knows? That's the big question that's going to be asked. So I think from their point of view, they would look at it and say, well, this is a massive tick given where we came from, given that this team didn't have finals experience. They've been able to play their first final as a group together, get a win. And let's not forget Sydney, grand finalists last year, albeit walloped. They're a great football club.
Paul, they have finals experience.
They are a great football club.
How many seasons has John Longmire missed out on finals?
It's just 2 or 3, if that.
It's not much.
They are
basically the point I'm trying to put.
Exactly.
I'm trying to say that they have the experience.
An incredibly sustainably successful football club are the Sydney Swans, and they gave their all. They were relentless even after half-time when the game looked done and dusted. There was that patch in the third term where they put the pressure on the Blues. They made the most of their opportunities in that third term, and then throughout the course of the match, they probably didn't make the most of their opportunities going forward of centre, and that was probably the knock. I thought Hayden McLean was fantastic. He made himself known as a gun key forward in the competition. That's a performance he can go forward with into next season. But the Blues, a lot of their stars didn't have star-like performances, but it was the lesser lights that stood up, and I think ultimately that's been the story of Carlton's season this season. Cripps has led well. He hasn't been the Patrick Cripps we've seen of old, 40 touches, 2 goals, 35 touches, 3 goals. He hasn't needed to be that because he's played a lot more of a selfless role. I think a lot of these stars that they have got a lot more trust in the lesser lights, and ultimately that's what's led to a Carlton victory. Did they hold on? Yeah, probably, but that backline's bloody hard to get through.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought Carlton did a very good job. I think you summed it up pretty good. I thought Carlton's bottom 6 players were very good. It was very monumental to be there, just to witness the atmosphere. Now, for a lot of Carlton fans who weren't there, just let's paint a picture for them. There was 92,000 people there, and 80,000 of them were Carlton. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
What I'll say is I'll be very, very quick with the way I analysed it all. This was more than the result. This was more than the result. And going into this game, I was chatting to a couple of close mates and a few people, in media circles, saying, I think this game means more for Carlton than it does for Sydney.
Yeah.
And that's why I think they'll get over the line, just because of the whole narrative behind the Blues and the season and what's happened to the club in the last 10 years and the last 15, 20 years, really. So the performance itself wasn't...
I don't think both sides were on.
It wasn't the best performance that Carlton has put in this patch. Yeah. It's not been one of their best performances, right? But Sydney, you can say that this was probably one of their better performances, I would say.
But we need to also understand, whilst you say that, in finals, how many times are you going to get the whole game on your terms?
It love the way Sydney...
It doesn't work
I love the way Sydney equalised the midfield battle. I love the way that they equalised the clearance battle, stoppages around the ground as well. The way that they used that high half-forward flank area to get McLean involved and to get, to really get their opportunities going forward, I thought was very impressive. But... Ultimately, Carlton's just a better football team at the moment.
Now,
simple as that.
Jack Martin has received a 2-week suspension.
Should be 1 week.
From the MRO. Kane Corns was pretty candid with your opinion. He very similar to yours. I think very similar to a lot of people. Yep. I think this is going to go. It will be going to the tribunal tonight, along with the Maynard incident.
Yep, that'll go to the
probably
appeals.
Go down to 1 week. I think it's fair. I think he deserves to be suspended. It's high contact. I mean, Nick Blakey did end up playing the rest of the game.
He did,
but the reality is you can't make. We're going to make a precedence here. It's
silly from Jack Martin.
It's a suspension. But what I was very impressed with is after that incident, the maturity of Jack Martin to then play out the game, despite knowing he's probably going to get time.
Yeah, exactly.
The maturity to come out
Yep.
and to stand up big in those moments, particularly in the last quarter.
Completely agree.
Were unbelievable. And we're going to get into talking about standing tall. We'll get onto our segment a little bit later. But also Harry Mackay a tall figure at Carlton in the forward line, got concussed, so he's out for a minimum of a week. Interesting to see what happens this week. We'll discuss that in the preview. And yeah, I think you summed that game up pretty good.
I think and I think Carlton would look back on that game and say, okay, first half how we wanted it.
Had it on our terms.
Second half, not on our terms, but able to hold on and still get the job done. And that's what good teams do.
Yeah,
that's what good teams do.
To be fair, it's funny. I think the way that both games on Thursday and Friday night were literally carbon copy. I mean, Collingwood kicked the first 2 goals, can't kick the first 2 goals. The opposition responded with the next. Both winning teams had it on their terms in the first half, were able to hold on, withstanding a rush from the losers in the second half. And I couldn't believe the terms of similarities in terms of how the actual game panned out. I mean, the Carlton game wasn't necessarily dominated by Sydney, the losing team, but the Collingwood one was in Melbourne. But very similar how they panned out. Both very good games. We'll move on from that game. Carlton now face Melbourne, as we said, on Friday night.
Yes.
And Sydney, they're probably looking towards the trade period at the moment. Going to get some big names, hopefully, looking at Grundy. And
holidays first.
Yeah, holidays first. But it is what it is. Saturday afternoon, twilight, MCG, St Kilda, 11... You're not going to lose it. 11-11, 77.
Lord Nelson.
Were defeated by Greater Western Sydney, 15-11, 101, 24 points, 4-goal margin. I think I was very candid and expecting GWS to win. I thought it was the hardest game to analyse from the first week.
Very bullish on the Giants.
I thought it would be a lot. When I say closer, I'm not referencing the scoreline.
Right, okay.
I'm referencing the contest, but this was just one-way traffic.
It was, yeah. And I know St Kilda got a little bit of a flurry towards the back end of the third quarter, but they were never winning.
This was one-way traffic, Paul.
It was.
This was very impressive by GWS.
This was the argument made against St Kilda coming into the back end of the season and coming into finals. Do these players stack up in big moments? Does the way that they play stack up in big moments? And we were actually discussing this after the Brisbane game.
Yeah.
Where
you and I came in here and...
Yeah, it was the Brisbane versus St Kilda game at the Gabba a couple of weeks ago. Was it the second last game of the season?
Yeah, it was. Where St Kilda put it to them.
Yeah, they did. But
they went down by 2 or 3 goals, but yeah.
The way I looked at that game and the way I analysed that game was St Kilda are here not to lose. They just stifle and stifle and stifle and stifle. Wings.
What's the name? What do you call them?
Roadblock FC.
Do you want to say it again?
They are Roadblock FC.
Love it.
They are. They're just annoying. They just sit there. They can't do anything.
They're like traffic control.
Yeah, they can't do anything. They can't progress forward, but they can stop you from progressing.
I just love that. Sorry, I just love how you call them Roadblock FC.
They are though. They are. Yeah. They're not going to win a flag.
Not with that team.
No, just not ever.
I do think though Ross Lyon has done well to get the best out of that group.
That's exactly right. But the problem is, does that style stack up in the big time? To a certain point, yes, it will.
The answer's no.
But the problem is that you can't go out there and try to stifle and then come up against teams like the Giants, like Carlton, like Collingwood,
Melbourne,
like for that matter, and expect to win. And I just think they were never going to win this game. And they need to
told Paul Taliano that. He was very bullish on them.
They were never going to win this game, and they need some serious changes in the off-season. Did that look? There was. Obviously, we know what's happened with Tim Membry. He's got some mental health issues, which he's going through.
That was a bit surprising.
Did that rattle?
Stephen Cornelio was a laid out too.
Stephen Cornelio was a laid. Did that rattle St Kilda? Maybe a little bit, but I think when you go out there and the adrenaline's rushing, it's all forgotten about, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. That Tim Membry incident, that withdrawal was announced relatively early. Like this wasn't a half an hour before the game job. This was announced at about 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. So
it can still rattle you, I think, as a club. But when you've got a job to do, you've got a job to do. But I love just the Giants midfield. Ugh. So good. I know we'll get onto it soon.
They run hard.
Yeah, God, they do. And as
they
just
outrun them. And St Kilda are not a mug running team. They're up there with one of the hardest running teams. And the Giants just they just outworked them.
I like what Jesse Hogan's become. in the back half of this season. I think Kingsley's got him. He's got him in a good frame of mind. He's got him in a good spot. Do you think he's switched?
In the wise words of Sukraj, he's on the job.
Oh yeah, he is. He's on the job. Good old Sukraj. Yeah, he's definitely on the job, and that's a hard thing to do given what he's gone through. You know, he's had issues off field. He's had cancer that he's gone through. He's had a lot of dramas off the field, and I love Kingsley as a coach. I've always ranted and raved about him. I wanted him to be at Carlton. He's done wonderfully with GWS in his first season. They're a young team too. They've got a lot of young players in that team.
First season, and they are in a semi-final. Big up to Adam Kingsley. Well done to the Giants. Is there anything else you want to add to this game?
Not really. No. Can the Giants go down to Port and win?
I think they can.
We'll get onto that slightly.
But to answer it in short, I think they can. Yep. Well, speaking of Port Adelaide, Saturday night, second qualifying final at the Gabba.
Yep.
Brisbane won by 48 points, 19-9. Very accurate. I mean, 19 goals, 9, 123
good
to
kickings, good
11
football.
Goals, 9, 75 Port Adelaide. I will be honest, I watched half of this game and then watched highlights. I was busy on Saturday night.
No, that's understandable.
But look, from what I saw, Brisbane and Port Adelaide were in the game for the majority of it, and then Brisbane's gear just kicked in.
Yeah, it did.
They clicked the NOS button.
They did. The NOS, Fast and Furious. Yeah,
and they
Fast
just went
and Furious.
whooshka. And their forward line, as we discussed last week in the preview, was going to be a bit too much for Port Adelaide's defence, and it was. I mean, look, you got the stats there. I mean,
forward line is phenomenal.
You go through it
Danaher 5, Rayner 3. Yeah. Where Cameron kicked 2.
Cameron's kicked 2. Jasper Fletcher, the young fella's
3.
kicked 3.
Good on the young fella.
Eric Hipwood's kicked 1 goal, 3, which could have been easily 2 goals or 3 goals.
If one doesn't get you, the other one will get you. If that one doesn't get you, another one will get you.
I'm of the belief they've got the most potent forward line in the comp.
It is. It's the best forward line in the competition.
I agree.
One thing that I think has been really undersold for Brisbane in this season and the run that they've had this season is their back line.
Yeah.
Which was a little bit of a question mark. Yep. There was a bit of a question mark on it. Their back line has been so strong. Keeping Port to 75 points as well helps fuel your offense too. So you look at what Payne and Andrews have been able to do down in the back line, and those two smalls that they've got, Starcevic and Coleman. Don't undersell them,
Coleman.
Mate. They are some pretty good footballers, mate. And there might be a little weak point with their midfield. I don't think their midfield is absolute star quality. But I will say it is.
Well, Neil and Dunkley have been well held in the last.
They have been.
We've been real in the last 5 weeks.
McCluggage gets you. He's stepped into. Ashcroft has come out, and McCluggage has been like, okay, I need more midfield minutes now. So mate, they're just a well-rounded, well-oiled machine, and I
think we're forgetting to play Darcy Wilmot. I want to give a quick shout out to him.
Pepsi Max King.
Their back line.
Pepsi Max King.
Very underrated player, along with Kitty Coleman and Brandon Starcevic.
Yeah, I've liked what he's done. There's another Brisbane player I really like. I really like what he's been doing.
You're gonna speak about it later.
We'll get onto it later.
Yeah. But tell me, where to now for Port? So Port coming up. Trent McKenzie's on one leg. Yeah. Charlie Dixon. We don't know what's going to happen with him.
Yep.
I think the scoreline was flattering. I don't think Port Adelaide are an 8-goal worse side than Brisbane.
No.
That was reflected in round one. Obviously, I know lots changed, but where to now for Port?
Well, they can't win the flag. It's quite clear.
Yep.
And they are a different team at Adelaide Oval. I think every team's a different team at their home deck.
Yep.
I don't think you'll see a...
The Gabba is a fortress.
It is.
Has anyone beaten there?
The Gabatoir.
Has anyone beaten Brisbane at the Gabba this year? I'm going to say no.
No one has.
So let's say they've had 12 games there, right? 11 home games.
Penciled them all in.
Yeah.
Penciled them all in.
Okay. And the Lions. So we obviously you think Port can't win the flag. I tend to agree.
Yep.
I mean, they're going to have to face Collingwood at the MCG, which they're just not winning.
I think Brisbane should be...
if they do win this week.
I think Brisbane should be premiership favourite, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it. I think it should be flipped the other way.
Yeah.
They'll get into it. I think they'll get into it.
Do you think perhaps the fact that the grand finals played at the MCG is the reason why Collingwood are hard favourites?
Probably.
It's the only reason, really.
Probably, and I don't really...
And no disrespect to Collingwood, obviously it's 1 and 2 in the comp. Which way who you think is the better team is up to opinion.
It just seems it's just a bit of an anomaly, I think, with the whole MCG theory that they don't play well there. I mean, they run Melbourne. I know they
Paul, they've won one in their last
15 or something
games,
like that. I understand that.
The facts are there. It's not an anomaly.
I know. But coming into the game, to me, it's irrelevant coming into the game because that only guarantees the past. They were good. They were good against Melbourne. I know they fell away late and lost, but they were good against Melbourne.
Yep. Nope, that's fair.
So I wouldn't be too worried about this MCG hoodoo that they're going through.
Yep, no, that's fair.
They've got to get there first, though.
Yeah, that's true. But look, it's easy. It's fair to say as we wrap up the week one, the review of week one in finals that the two teams already in the preliminary final, Collingwood and Brisbane.
1 and 2 deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Ladder says that they were going to be there.
Well, as they say, the ladder doesn't lie, does it?
No.
But look, we'll put up that graphic for you now on screen, and you'll see it there come up. So the path to the premiership. So you'll see there that the winner of Melbourne and Carlton face Brisbane, and then the winner of Port Adelaide and GWS face Collingwood.
Yep.
And then obviously we'll go from there. So Sydney are out.
St
Kilda are out. And
bye-bye.
There was 8, and now there's 6. Yep. Let's move on, Paul, to standing up tall in September. So we're just going to go through and pick pick one player from each game on the weekend, starting on Thursday night in the Collingwood and Melbourne game, and we're just going to talk about who we thought stood up tall in those moments. And as we both know, September is where you make a name for yourself.
Oh, yes.
Paul, Collingwood v Melbourne. Who was the guy?
September Steele. Steele side bottom.
Oh, that guy.
Steele side bottom.
The most underrated player in the AFL, according to AD.
Also known as Paul Italiano.
Big shout out, Paul.
Looks exactly like
him. You reckon his voice will come back when he hears that?
I think so. We can hear him from here. Melbourne, the reason I picked him was because Melbourne placed such a huge emphasis on the wing role, and I thought he negated and also helped Collingwood's offense. So he did both roles. He did his defensive duties well and did his offensive duties well too. So it was a well-rounded game as a winger, and I just love what he does. As soon as September comes around, this bloke he goes to another level. And let's not forget too, he's had a bit of an injury-interrupted season, which doesn't help when you're nearly 60 years old.
Yeah,
he's been there for a while.
He's had some time to get back. Look, I agree with that. I thought him still side bottom along with. I've gone with Jack Crisp.
Like it.
Jack Crisp was there to break the lines when Collingwood needed it. He was on the end of handball receives. This guy's big. He kicked a big goal from 50 in the first quarter. I think he's very unheralded, and I know a lot of the players in the Collingwood team, Nick Dacos and Darcy Moore get a lot of the attention, and deservedly so.
Still the limelight.
But Jack Crisp on Thursday night was unbelievable. He to me was Collingwood's best player.
Okay.
As I said, just watching him, the statistic, 26 touches, a goal. He runs through packs. He runs through lines. He makes very good decisions. 90% of the time, he uses the ball well, and just what he does when he has the ball.
Yeah.
It needs to be seen.
Yeah.
He was my September man for that Thursday night game. Friday night, Carlton Melbourne. Who was the guy?
I'm going with another winger. I love my wingers.
I've gone one with one too.
I love the wingers. I'm going with Matthew Cottrell, the red-headed running machine at Carlton. I think he racked up 17.6 kilometres, which is close to the highest kilometres run this season, and he was very influential. Kicked 2 goals with work rate that is just of an elite winger, really, and
selfless as well.
Yeah, very, very selfless. Loved his game. I've loved his season. His off season was huge, and he had the foot as well that he had to deal with.
Yep.
He put on a lot of weight in the off season, and that has also been coupled with this incredible running power. And I think he's turning into one of the best wingers, high half forward type roles in the game, and he showed it against Sydney. 2 goals, 2 influential goals, 2 huge goals. 17 touches, took some big marks in defence as well, and he is my standing tall out of that game.
No worries. Well, you've gone one. We've actually gone 3 wingers so far. So Crisp, Crisp is a halfback / winger, but side bottom Crisp and Cottrell to the 4th one, Blake Acres.
Yes.
I want to give a big shout out to this guy. I want to show this guy some love. He was absolutely massive on Friday night.
Huge.
Paul, forget the 2 touches on the line. Man, you got to see this. Like, we see AFL members on the wing, so we get a good. We see
his work rate.
His work rate is absolutely massive. He can play as a 7th forward or a 7th defender. He's a big body. He runs hard. He gives you effort. Sometimes his ball use is suspect, but I tell you what, we talk about bringing other things to the table.
Yeah.
Everything else he brings to the table for this team is huge.
Yep.
I've got a lot of respect for Blake Acres, and I just thought on Friday night, he was the guy. He was the difference.
Enormous.
Cottrell up to halftime had 13 touches and kicked 2 goals. Into the game with 17 touches and 2 goals. Absolutely outstanding. Blake Acres, in my opinion, was Carlton's most dynamic and most influential player on Friday night. And I think he deserves his flowers and every bit of praise that he gets, because that performance need to be seen to be believed. Listen, he's not a sexy player. He's not going to get you 40 touches, but I'm telling you, this guy is attracted to the ball. The ball, he gets to the right places. And you know what? That's from, as you said, with Cottrell, it's from his work ethic, and he runs hard. They both run up and down, but Blake Acres, he's my guy.
I love it.
My brother.
Yeah,
He's my brother.
He's got an appetite for the contest.
He does.
Is what he does.
And he's a big body.
Did you see? And I tweeted it.
I know
just
what you're
before
going to
we move
say.
on,
Yeah,
that passage of play in the last quarter,
where he kicked it into open space and ran,
sprinted after
you
the
could
ball.
See he was grimacing. He was
badly.
You know, there was a point in the game where I turned to, like, I was sitting with my dad, and you could see. I think. He hit a contest,
and he was
favouring
it,
and we were watching him on the we were watching him as the ball was getting thrown in on the Shane Warne side of the ground on the wing. I thought, mate, he's gone. Like but to be able to have the nous and to be able to have that,
he just kept finding
that fortitude and that attitude to actually play.
You just keep
through
finding
that pain barrier.
Yep.
That tells you a lot about the characteristics of a person and a footballer, and he's tough. So, St Kilda and GWS, who you got?
We've got a party player here.
Spider-Man?
Tom Green.
We've both gone Tom Green.
This man
I'll let you take it. We've
both
gone
gone incredible
Tommy Green.
footballer. This man is he's unheralded. His start to the fourth term when the game was on the line, St Kilda had all the momentum in the third term. He came out and just went clearance after clearance after clearance and contested ball after contested ball. He's a beast at the contest. He is Greater Western Sydney's best midfielder. I think he's going to turn very, very slowly into captain-like leadership material. He's that kind of player. He's very, very similar to He's very similar to Patrick Cripps in the mould of his contested and clearance game when Cripper was at a similar age. Very, very similar.
He's trending in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree on that.
He is a future leader of the GWS Giants, if he isn't already, and I just love everything he does. He's a beast. He's a brilliant footballer. I love watching him play. Absolutely love watching him play.
Just to read you some of his numbers, I know numbers aren't everything.
No, go through it.
You know, he's had 35 touches, 17 contested, 5 clearances.
It's ridiculous. Bless
Apologies.
you.
5 tackles. That's as big of a finals game as you're going to get, really.
Yeah. He was enormous.
He was big, especially in a game where, like, you know, a lot of the attention went to the other Green, Toby Green.
Yeah.
He's only had 19 and kicked 1. I mean, I say only. Now we see that below his.
Of course,
standard,
I know. Yeah, it is.
Tom Green, the midfielder, was massive, and I think you said it best.
I think his game was fantastic. Yep.
Brisbane v Port Adelaide Saturday night. Who stood tall?
Cam Rayner, love this kid. He kicked a massive goal in the second term. I think it was when it was really ebbing and flowing, and Port Adelaide looked like they were starting to wrestle a bit of momentum back in their favour, and then he kicked this running goal from 55, 60 out that just
set him alight.
Just blew my mind. And then he kicked this left foot snap as well, going to the left of screen.
I did say that one.
Yeah, he didn't absolutely burst his way through trouble, but it was his body and his movement and the hips, and then the finish as well. He's found his craft and niche as a forward.
We are forgetting he's a number 1 draft.
Yeah, exactly right. So he's freakishly talented. But his body now, you can see he's turned into a footballer. And the knock on him was that, you know, aerobically he might not be fit and he might not be able to get from contest to contest, but they shifted him down half back.
I think they're using him well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's plied his trade down there for a little bit, and now they've sent him back up forward and said, mate, you go and do your thing. Get ball in hand and damage opposition as much as possible. I love this game.
Amen. Yep. I've gone with Joe Danaher.
Big Joey.
Segment's called Standing Tall in September.
He's copped a bit of flack.
Yep. He's had a very good year, very underrated year, and to be honest, I think it was highlighted on Saturday night. So 5 goals, 6 marks. The good thing with Joey is Joe Danaher can do it on the ground. I've been one of his biggest critics. I'll put my hand up.
Yep.
But he's worked hard, and on Saturday night, I just think he proved again, and he solidified that Brisbane. He's the key to that Brisbane forward line. I know people talk about Charlie Cameron. I know Eric Hipwood has a role to play. I know that Lincoln McCarthy and Zach Bailey are going to run through there, and they're going to have a role to play. But Joe Danaher is going to be in my opinion, is going to be the reason why Brisbane go far in September and potentially go all the way and win the whole thing.
Yep.
5 goals, 6 marks. Obviously, Port Adelaide's defence is a bit undersized. I don't think that's nothing against Joe. I still think he was, in my opinion, the best player on the ground.
Yep.
And when something needed to be done, Joe done. He can do it on the floor. He can do it in the air. And he's not. I tell you what I have noticed about him. Maybe a potential attitude change, but he's not doing this twirly shit when he's kicking goals. Joe has his eyes. He's got tunnel vision. He has his eyes and he's focused. Yeah. To Saturday, the last Saturday in September, I see that hunger in his eye. And
get me there,
and I want to win the whole thing. Yeah. And he's not saying he wasn't a team player, but he has that look about him that's willing to do anything for the team. So
he does.
Big up to Joe Danaher.
Love it.
Paul, let's move on to our Week 2 finals preview.
Oh, what a way to end it.
Now, you'll see here the games will come up for you. So Melbourne v Carlton, $7.50 on Friday. The odds there you can see. So Melbourne are currently $1.67 to $2.20. I reckon they start closer.
I think they do too.
So fourth v fifth on ladder position there. I think probably starts closer to $1.75 to $10, $1.80. I think the money will come for Carlton.
Yep, sounds that way.
How do you? Hard to ask because we're both Carlton supporters.
No. Let's look at this.
We do both have an ability to be realistic.
Looking at this logically, right? So I'm looking back at the last time these two teams played and using that as a
reference.
I think because it's recent.
Yeah,
it was a finals-like atmosphere. That always gets brandied about in the media circles.
Yep.
It was two teams going blow for blow, and Carlton ended up coming on top. And
last man standing.
They came out on top, right. And what I'm looking at out of that game is Carlton will be without Jack Martin.
1 minute, and Harry Mackay.
And Harry Mackay.
That's a given.
Carlton were not with Harry Mackay in the game that they played against Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. They will get back from that game against Melbourne, Chera, Walsh, Mitch McGovern.
Who didn't all play
against Melbourne.
Yeah.
Right. 3 of the most important players for Carlton.
All those players you mentioned were huge on Friday night against Sydney as well.
Spot on.
Those two midfielders.
Yeah. Jack Martin will not play. Jack Silvani will come into the team, who is not Jack Martin, can't do what Jack Martin does, but he is an ample replacement. And what I like for the Blues in this scenario, and what I've always seen him as, and what I've always wanted him to play is that just the pure high half forward role. He'll be able to hit up. He'll be able to just focus on his role up in the forward line.
No ruck for him.
Pitternet and De Koning will ruck. Then I look at the scenario of who do Melbourne have out and who do they have in from that game. Jake Malcolm comes out of the team that played against Carlton last time, who's been a thorn in Carlton's side for a long, long time.
And to be fair, when he has had his opportunity for anyone who's played against.
Correct.
He's a big loss.
He takes his opportunities when they are there, and he was massive. He's a massive out for them against Collingwood. He is.
Agreed.
Now, the other two that come out, Van Ruin, he's important for structure. He may not have been as influential in the last month and a half, but he can bob up. The other one is Gus Brayshaw, who we know what's happened with him.
Yeah.
He's out of that team from the team that lost to Carlton a couple of weeks ago. The only real improvement that they are going to get, maybe, we figured out what Carlton may do. We get Clayton Oliver.
Who's had more games into his
Correct.
legs.
Is that good enough to beat Walsh, Chera, McGovern coming back in, with Silvani coming in as well, and Motlop getting a go as well because Mackay will miss 2? I think there's more upside in the Blues than there is in Melbourne. That's how I'm seeing it. And
with Gawn and a broken toe.
Well, he may be on struggle street as well. And Grundy was very well handled by the Blues last time.
Do they bring in Grundy?
And I think Pitternet also having a bit more game time under his belt as well. I thought he was good against Sydney. I'm just looking at this logically and thinking to myself, Carlton beat them last time without these players in. Carlton is a better team with these players in. How do they lose? I'm just thinking. I'm not saying it to be arrogant. I'm just saying, if you look at it logically, how do they lose in that scenario? Unless something completely goes wrong and Melbourne magically figures out tactically how to bury Carlton. I just don't see it happening. I don't think it's. I could be completely wrong.
No. Look, it's fair. I think what you said's right. I do believe
for in this scenario, I think the market is favouring the home factor and the home thing a little bit too much.
The fact that they finished top 4.
Yeah, that whole thing, and straight sets in 2 years in a row. It's possible. It's
against. It's historically not common.
And don't forget too, Melbourne was not in a scenario where that they came up against Carlton earlier in the season and were playing for nothing. They're playing for a top 4 spot in that particular moment to lock away a top 4 spot. So there was a lot on the line for both clubs. It was not, you could have made the argument for Collingwood against Carlton. Oh, they've already locked away a top 2 spot.
Yep.
They were maybe a gear or 2 down. Okay, fair enough. Melbourne wasn't. Do they get a lot of improvement out of Clayton Oliver?
Well, he's a bit suspect. He was also one that missed. Him and Gawn did not miss training. They were according
individual
to
programs, modified programs, which a lot of them go through at this time of year.
And I think there's a lot of teams that are walking wounded at this time of the year too. I think both of them will play. I'm not going to give the max units, max bet on Carlton talk that I did last week for the Pies.
Well done with that, by the way.
They were never losing the game. I actually was laughing at people who thought Melbourne were going to win the game. But what I will say is I think Carlton wins the game.
Okay.
I do. Okay. And it's no Carlton hat. I've got the ability to
take it off.
I've got the ability to understand that when it's Carlton's time to win and when it's Carlton's time to lose and when I have an opinion on the game, very similar to you.
Yep.
Carlton, I think Carlton wins the game.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it logically.
I'm worried about the game, both sides. It's basically 2 of the top 3 teams that have the best defences in the comp. Yep. And at the moment, I think Melbourne's defence is holding them in good stead.
Yep.
Right? It has for the whole year.
Yep.
I can't see. I mean, it's every possible chance to occur. I can't see Carlton giving Melbourne 32 more inside 50s like Collingwood did.
No,
I just can't. No. But I also can't see Melbourne being as dysfunctional and as diabolical as what they were against Collingwood. Having said that, Van Rooyen was a witch's hat. He may as well not have played the game. Tom McDonald can't move sideways, but the bloke's got the turning circle of the Queen Elizabeth.
He's on struggle street.
Right.
At the
so
moment,
who do they bring in?
Grundy
plays, and I'm telling you now, the way if I had a little crystal ball or if I was reading a picture book, Grundy plays, Melbourne lose, and then the narrative continues. Grundy and Gawn don't work. And then what does Grundy do? Grundy leaves. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'm looking too far ahead. Potentially.
That's a reality.
As a possibility.
That's a reality.
But I do believe to me, it won't affect who they bring in. I think Carlton's defence is just and every bit as good as Melbourne's defence. I think the true battle is going to be, as you reference it, between the arcs and at the contest. And whoever gets on top of that, I think will win the game. I just think at the moment I'm backing Carlton's midfield ahead of theirs, and Melbourne. No knock on their midfield. Their midfield's huge.
Yeah.
I love their midfield. Their midfield's they're contested beasts. They play the game hard. They play the game the right way. You mentioned Brayshaw's out, massive out,
huge.
Melksham out, massive out. Van Rooyen, not so much. Carlton need to control Christian Petrarca and Cozzy Pickett and Max Gawn. If they control those 3 players, they win the game. Simple as that.
It is as simple as that.
I think we can honestly. I think that's where the game. If they can get a hold of, if they can somewhat mitigate or negate Max Gawn's influence and Christian Petrarca's influence on the game,
completely
they have every chance to put Petrarca up forward.
Well, they have to.
I think is what they're going to do.
But they have to. But the problem then there is that
their midfield stoppage. Their midfield depth is if they take Petrarca
that's the issue now, isn't it? So who do they throw in there? They've got bodies that they can rotate through there, no doubt. But
your Jordans of the world, your Rivers,
do they go for Harms? Do they go play? I just don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Harms might get his opportunity.
Exactly. As I said, I'm just looking at this logically.
Like
he does look a bit like
he's the blonde-haired version of Jamie.
Harms' head, his teeth don't fit his head. I'm sure he'd be the
Sorry,
first.
JV, if you're watching.
Harmsy's teeth don't fit.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
serious,
that,
serious.
like I said, I'm looking at this logically. The players that come in for Carlton from the last time that they played against Melbourne only make them a better team. That's how I'm looking at it.
Sure.
And the players that come out for Melbourne last time they played Carlton makes Melbourne a worse team.
So say less. Say less.
So
there it is.
I have to tip Carlton.
Carlton?
Yeah.
I'm tipping Carlton. And make of it whatever you want. The viewers at home will whatever. I'm just being real. I don't think Carlton lose. Port Adelaide GWS Saturday at 7. I thought this would have been a twilight game. It's not. So they're going to be playing it at 7:40 Melbourne time. This is
very simple scenario.
The betting, as you'll see there on the screen, Port Adelaide $1.60, GWS $2.35, third versus 7. Now this is not sponsored. This is just odds that come up on the AFL app. That's as of this morning, Tuesday morning.
Yep.
I think the price is right.
I agree.
I think it's about a 7.5. If I'm guessing, what, 7.5 point spread.
Completely agree with that.
8.5, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think Port will win. They're a different team at Adelaide Oval. They won't play as that performance that they put up against Brisbane at the Gabba.
Do you think that was knowing they had a safety net to fall
little
back
bit,
on?
bit, but I think
to me that's what it looked like.
They will notch themselves up from that. And I think even the performance they put in at the Gabba, if they notch up an extra 5% from that, I think it's good enough to beat GWS.
So they're probably going to lose Trent McKenzie, and Canelio comes back in for GWS. So one defence, they're walking very thin down back Port Adelaide, and GWS will get back star of the competition in Stephen Canelio.
Yep.
Who was well covered for in that St Kilda game, by the way. I don't know. I genuinely do not know. Look, the logic is telling us that Port Adelaide win the game.
Yes,
but finals are not always played in this way.
No, they're not. They're not.
But then again, are we both tipping a straight sets exit for both of these top 4 teams?
No, that's. Yeah,
I mean, it's. I don't know.
Possibility.
It's.
As I said, I just think I'm looking at it from the perspective of Port Adelaide coming back to Adelaide Oval, just a completely different team.
So you think Port Adelaide win?
Yes.
You sound very confident.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm not going to lie.
I think it will be.
I'm nowhere near as confident as that.
I think it'll be the 2 to 3 goal margin. I think it'll be that all game. But I think it'll be one of those ones where GWS will be there or abouts, but Port Adelaide probably aren't going to lose it. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Okay. So just to wrap it up, so Friday, 7:50 at the MCG, a sold-out MCG. Well done to both sets of fans, but the majority of them are going to be Carlton, let's be real. Melbourne is sitting there on Twitter like they're the ones behind the sellout. They sold out the crowd in the first 2 weeks.
They only get 50,000 to their grand final celebration the year after they won it.
Collingwood and Carlton fans that are sold. Anyway,
everyone knows.
Who cares about the crowd? I mean, we care about the crowd, but it's just all fugazi, really.
Yeah.
And then so you're going Carlton Friday night.
Yeah.
You're going to the game, obviously.
I'll be there, mate.
Yep.
Bells and whistles.
Friday. Yeah, I'm going to go to the Blues as well. Saturday, Port Adelaide for you, Paul.
Port Adelaide for me, yes. Port Adelaide at the line, I think, is the way to go there.
At the line?
Yeah.
I think it was about 8.5.
7.5. Yeah, I think it'll be 2 to 3 goals. Yeah.
Yep. Well, Paul, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Pleasure. See this, mate. Caution hot.
Caution,
That's what's happening here, mate.
Our man's coming hot.
The grill's find him, mate.
You can find him on the Jumper Punch, guys.
Yes.
The Jumper Punch, Blue Broad, SEN overnights.
Correct.
Paul
the Mundo.
Sebastiani, our man, our guy. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching.
Indeed.
Cheers.